Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
Todd might not tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what you need to hear. And all you got to do is listen.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Change my life. When I noticed you there, you were my angel sent from my despair. I know that you are the lady who cares. Whoa, yeah, yeah. I wanna spend my life with you. Yeah, yeah. I wanna spend my life with you. Yeah, yeah. With you.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting in the middle of Minton in the Black Diamond Group Mother-Ship. Folks, not with my good friend Craig Russell, the muscle, the hustle. He is currently on a yoga retreat, but I am instead with the man, the boss, the legend. You hear him day in and day out on 98.5 WUPS. Steve, how you doing, Steve?
I'm doing very well, Todd. I may pay for footage to see Craig at that yoga retreat.
Craig is currently at a yoga retreat somewhere in the Southwest. He said he was going to do it for a while. So, yeah, that's, we can't call him Mando. He is America's favorite nug. He's the gas man. He's the gassiest man I know. Celine Dion did write a song about him, Steve.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
I'm not a Celine Dion fan, so I just have to go by memory.
Okay.
No idea. How you doing, Steve?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. It's good to have you back on the show.
It's been a while since we've done it together.
You're my mentor. So here I am in studio with one of the individuals who, I don't know, taught me how to do this stuff. So I appreciate you and Tammy.
If I am your
Michael
mentor,
J. back in the day. Big shout out to Michael J.
You are mental.
You are my mentors. How does that sound? And we're actually in the studio.
Yeah. Padded walls and everything.
Padded walls and everything, yeah. It's so cool because I listen to you all the time on the radio because I'm always tuned in to 98.5.
Good man.
And then when I see you, your voice is the same on the radio.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's always one of those things that's weird about radio. You always get this picture of who you're listening to, and then it's usually wildly different than what you see.
I have a fake radio voice. This is not my real voice. If you meet me in person, I sound more like this. Good morning, Your Honor. This is Todd Levitt. Well, wait, what happened to this voice?
Yeah.
Where is that voice? This is totally fake. But, hey, we opened up the show with Slaughter, just destroying it with my noggin all week. I was listening to Slaughter. I had my truck, and when I'm not tuned to, UPS, I'm listening to hair bands on Sirius XM. I go back and forth. So, but usually I'm tuned into UPS. Especially because I'm doing a show on UPS. I better say that.
Might as well, yeah. You know where your bread's buttered.
So when can people, everybody knows who you are, but this is a podcast also, and you can listen to all the Black Diamond Group stations on the podcast app, which is, how do they find the app?
Either Android or iPhone, you just search for Black Diamond Broadcasting, and it puts all 10 of our Michigan-made Black Diamond Broadcasting stations at your fingertips. Your home for classic hits is 98.5 UPS. I do the mornings here. We do that 6 to 10, Monday through Friday. I'm on Saturday as well, so more than enough opportunity to get tired of me.
Yeah. No, I never get tired of listening to you. And Tammy Thompson, big shout out to Tammy Thompson. Yeah, she's great as well. But, hey, listen, we have a huge show. And Craig Russell, the muscle, the hustle, he will be back next week. And if he's not, hopefully you'll be here in his place. He's got big shoes to fill, but your shoes are just as large.
Next man up. That's
next
the
man
policy,
up.
Right?
But we have a huge show. We're going to be talking today. One, Grant G. Money from M66 will be on the show. We always say this week in and week out, and then we end up doing the show. And, Steve, and there's no strain of the week.
Oh.
I know. But he will be on the show shortly. Also, we're going to talk about traffic stops. Unfortunately, how many of us out there have been stopped? Both of my arms are
almost
up.
everyone I know.
And how many of us, should have been stopped?
Well, that's everyone.
You know what I'd like to see happen? I would like to be stopped on the ditch, which is the highway.
Mm-hmm.
I have some friends that are state troopers, and they call it the ditch. I don't know why, because they go off the ramps into the ditch.
Okay.
I guess. And a big shout out to all the troops out there. But I want somebody to pull me over and say, hey, I just want to stop you because you're driving so well.
Pat you on the back?
Yeah, I just want a pat on the back.
Look at you. You used your signal back there. You're doing the speed limit.
Come on. Come on.
They would do that on a day you're running late, though, and you'd
right,
for that as well.
But think about that.
Oh, yeah.
How often do you pass an officer, he's off to the side, and you're thinking, man, I'm glad I was going at least
doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Can't you just pull me over and say, listen, Todd, Steve, you've done such a great job. Here's a lollipop.
I was going to say, here's a gas card or something.
Here's a gas card.
Hey, I would go for that.
Yeah, listen, I'm a taxpayer. I want the state of Michigan. Listen, I'm going to call my congressmen and women.
Yeah.
I want to be pulled over and told I'm doing a great job.
I am not inviting the pull me over for any reason.
Right.
Advocate.
Meanwhile, you and I are pulled over because we're going to have lunch together.
Yeah.
And then the real speeders just haul tail past the cop.
Yeah.
He takes off. We never get the treat. So there you go.
Well, the boy can dream.
Yeah, the boy can dream. How you doing, Steve? I haven't seen you in a minute.
Doing super well. Family's doing well. Heading into the holidays, it's always exciting. So, I got 2 little girls of my own. We took in a foreign exchange student this year, too. So that's
Which country?
From Spain.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got a house full of girls, my wife and my 2 daughters, and then Lola's from Spain as well. She's 16 and loving it here, having a great time.
Okay, That's great. I mean, I recall growing up, Berkeley High, Class 83, go Bears. Shameless plug for Berkeley Bears. Nobody knows where Berkeley is. They don't think it's Berkeley, California. Do you know where Berkeley is?
I do. My aunt-in-law, I guess, my wife's aunt, works down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because maybe we could go visit Berkeley and get pulled over and have someone tell us that our driving is outstanding. That'd be outstanding.
That would be outstanding.
Yeah. But we do have a huge show. We're going to be talking about, because we were alluding to traffic stops, and I get this question all the time. Once the purpose of the initial traffic stop is completed, Todd, how long can an officer keep you at the scene? Mm-hmm. If you're pulled over for a blinker or a civil infraction, what's the scope? What is the scope? What do the courts allow an officer to do and not do?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I get that all the time. I just got that this week, so we're going to talk about that.
Cool.
We have the strain of the week. I held court last week at Spicer's here in Houghton Lake, Michigan. So I definitely want to talk about how interesting it was to conduct court at how would you describe Spicer's?
Well, it's, Spicer's Boat City. It's boats, and more boats, and all the accessories, and it's a retail store.
Snowmobile, side by sides, and so we're going to talk about everybody at Spicer's. Also, I had an interesting situation with my snowmobile not my sleds, but the trailer.
Okay,
and so I want to thank here some Power Motorsports, Emerson and Sean Corridor and Luke and everybody at Harrison Power Sports for coming through for me so I could take that trailer to Spicer's. two competing businesses, but I frequent both here in mid-Michigan, both Harrison Power Sports in Harrison, Michigan off 127. They have the same different brands than Spicer's. But I like to spread my business around.
That's a good
So they
man.
both came through for yours truly this week. So we'll talk about that as well.
Cool. Good to hear when you have a success story.
And more about Craig Russell and his yoga retreat. I'm not a yoga. I'm not a yoga guy. Can you do yoga?
I cannot do yoga. And we went to Hawaii last year, and I skipped on yoga. They went and did goat yoga, where there's little baby goats running around. You go to a farm, and there's goats, and they climb on you, and I passed on it. I almost wish I would have went.
I mean, Steve, I was with you at the beach this summer, and I wondered what that welt in your back was that looked like a goat. Is it a hoof?
Yeah.
Is it a hoof?
Yeah, it's a hoof mark.
I'm not doing – look, nothing against yoga. A lot of athletes do yoga. I actually have a friend I grew up with, Brian Kest, out in California. If you look him up, Kest, he's like the king of yoga in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And we grew up in Metro Detroit. I'm not a yoga kind of guy. Not even – I mean, there's nothing against it. I'm more of a –
physical
kind of guy.
Push the pedals, paddle the boat. Yeah,
I still want to play, padded football at 57. I want to put those pads back on. A big shot, Gladwin.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Flying G's.
Wow.
Yes. State champs.
Yeah, they got a great coach, and this is a podcasted show, so nobody out there other than in Michigan may know where Gladwin, Michigan is, but way to go.
Look them up.
State
They're
champs.
Great team, great town.
Yep. So how we doing on time?
I got a couple minutes to kill if you want.
Okay. What would you like to talk about? What's on your mind, Steve?
Oh, gosh, you don't want to know what's on my mind.
I could talk a little bit about court this past week.
Okay, let's do that.
So, interesting cases. Had a license appeal case. A lot of individuals out there are blowing into all different types of devices.
Mm-hmm.
There's these ankle scram. So, if you're on bond, probation, certain types of conditions the court may or may not place you on, or the state of Michigan, it's either going to be, which is really intrusive, there's something called a scram device. It's put on your ankle.
So this is like a supervised release
It is.
ankle monitor.
Or
thing.
for sentencing, sobriety court, drug courts. So they put this ankle device on you, and if there's any type of alcohol that even touches your skin, it will register that you were drinking or around alcohol.
Wow.
Now, there is some science behind it, and there's been a lot of court cases over the decades when this technology came out, arguing that, again, it's a device, it's a computer chip, it's faulty.
Right.
So that's one device. The second device is it's a handheld device. So individuals, they receive a message on their phone, and they have to blow into it like a PBT, a preliminary breath test.
Okay.
That's another device they have to blow into.
Okay.
So these clients either have the handheld device or they have the ankle device. So I had a case last week where a client of mine was show-caused, meaning they were on probation. They were utilizing one of these handheld devices. It went off. It blew hot, and they got violated for probation, so we had to go before a judge. Mm-hmm. Now, the day it happened, my client contacted me. I immediately referred them to a clinic to obtain what's called an ETG. An ETG test is a test that detects alcohol in your system going back 72 hours.
Okay.
So we immediately had them do that day an ETG. Now, the court was pressing that this person drank. They were convinced of it. The device never lies. And I'm not going to talk about the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction, by the way, was not in mid-Michigan. It wasn't in Isabella, Clare, Gladwin, Roscommon, Gratiot. Even it was down south.
Okay.
It was below Lansing.
Okay.
Which is, if you're listening to the show out of state, you look at Michigan.
You're down in the palm.
Down in the palm.
Yeah.
In any event, my point of the story is the device went off. The probation department was convinced that this person was drinking. So we went before the judge, and I supplied the probation department with this ETG, and it came back negative that the person wasn't drinking. I was arguing that it was a false positive.
Sure.
Now, the device, it only registered twice, and it was a very low blood alcohol registration. So it wasn't as if this person was blowing for a half an hour to an hour continuously with a blood alcohol content.
Right.
It was just 2 quick blows, followed by, a few minutes later, a clean blow.
Okay.
So you have a positive, 10 minutes later, clean blow. That person obviously was not drinking.
Up that quick.
No, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So there was something wrong, false positive. Some people say they don't exist. I do. In any event, they were looking to revoke the probation, throw my client in jail for 30 days. We had the ETG. In the end, the judge agreed with our position, the argument, because we did the right thing. We did our due diligence, Steve. We, as soon as the client called me because they violated the device, it went off. We had him go get the ETG, and it was thrown out.
See, and this is why it's important to have not just a litigator, but an advocator. You know what to do in that situation.
Really important. I'm not just a litigator. Steve, thank you very much for my big creative voice. I love that commercial, by the way. So, what were we even talking about?
Your testing devices.
Right. Again, a lot of these devices, look, often people, they relapse, they make mistakes, they drink, they have issues. I don't judge people. We don't judge people. We're defective. We're human. I always say this to everybody out there. We're all defective. But this was a case whereby the judge made the right decision. The client did the right thing. There's other cases where someone will call our office, Steve, and it's clear that they violated. And I always say, look, be truthful.
Right.
Okay, the court will work with us. If you go in there and lie, you're going to be chasing your tail. You can go to jail. If you're honest, let's get another chance here. And often that works.
Good. Well,
so that happened last week.
That's incredible. The things you see on a weekly basis, I'm sure, are just incredible. We'll talk more about what Todd does and what he sees. We've got a big show ahead of us. It is the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
my life. Yeah, when I noticed you there, you were my angel sent from my despair. I know that you are the lady who cares. Whoa, yeah, yeah. I wanna spend my life with you. Yeah, yeah. I wanna spend
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Turning it and burning it, folks. Literally with Steve in the studio. We're just, what a nug we got going here, Steve. That is just outstanding. What is that?
Oh, I tell you, I can't even tell you. I
Can't even tell you.
It's that good.
How would that go over with Mike and Norm if we were actually sitting in our studio, smoking a fatty?
I'm going to say not so well.
Yeah, and Mike and Norm, we are not doing that. Strictly
Absolutely not.
fictitious. It's show business. Yeah, exactly. That little scratchy on the throat. Did it burn your throat there, Steve?
It happens.
Coming back with Slaughter, one of my all-time favorite, probably top 5 hairband groups there, Steve.
I was always a big fan of Slaughter. Mark
Yeah.
Slaughter had just such a great, clean voice. A little surprised they weren't bigger, but they're in that hairband region, and a lot of people didn't make it out of that.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, by the way, during the break, we received a call from a few different law enforcement agencies, and they're taking up our recommendation. And if you're just tuning in, I would like, we talked about this in the first segment, Steve. What did we talk about?
Getting commended for good driving as opposed to just being pulled over for bad driving.
So here's my question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's listening. You're not under oath.
Okay.
Would you be one of those individuals pulled over for good driving? Because I would not be.
I typically would. Now,
Come on.
I'm not going to, well, I got.
Raise your right hand.
I've got young kids at home.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth will help you, God.
Sure.
Okay. Did you speed on the way to work here today?
Okay, maybe a little bit.
There you
But
go.
the roads are empty when I come in.
They are.
I come in bright and early. So.
They are. And look, I don't speed.
You okay there?
Yeah, I'm okay. No,
It's
but
big nug again.
Big nug. Strain of the weekend. Grant G Money's from M66 will be on shortly, just in a moment. But truly, they say, whoever they are, that there's an officer who is doing a traffic enforcement. They're looking for somebody who's closer to 10 miles over the speed limit.
Oh, I'm never really in that range.
Or, I mean, they could be driving recklessly or carelessly or cutting somebody off. I mean,
Switching lanes like crazy.
right.
And, yeah.
And we're going to be talking about traffic stops here. We're going to get to that momentarily. But without further ado, Grant G Money, welcome back to the show, G.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you.
Good. What you got? What are you doing there? I hear a lot of background noise.
Oh, apologize.
Yeah. He's like Mike Nichols' wife, Wendy Nichols, attorney at law. She's a great lawyer. She's always in the background when Mike's on the show, breaking dishes, washing dishes. There is so much commotion.
Yeah.
It's classic.
Life goes on.
Yeah. Hey, Grant, so we haven't had you on in a couple weeks. What do you got for the strain of the week?
That's good though, because I had to dial it up a little bit and find something really special. So I'm here to introduce the new strain.
Brought to you, by the way, M66 Group, which Grant is a member of, soon to be opening up a recreational dispensary in Barrington, Michigan, right there off M66 between M10 and M20, right there in the great town of Barrington, Michigan,
Nice.
probably February or March. What you got, Grant? What do you have for the listeners this week?
Got it. So the strain of the week is the soap.
The soap?
Soap, like SOAP. Yep.
Well, foap?
Funny sounding.
You say
strain,
soap or
right?
foap?
S.
S, soap?
Like scrub-a-dub-dub.
Like soap. Yep. Like soap. Wash your hands. The soap.
Nice.
It's actually a really popular strain as of recently. It's a cross between animal mints and Kush mints, so they're very very popular crosses. So a lot of people are hearing about it and wanting to experiment with it and give it a try. It's a really awesome strain. It's a sativa strain. I know you talk to the listeners about sativas and indicas and things like that. Sativas are really awesome for, focus, feeling energized. It's usually, what most people like to go to, especially people that are just getting into the effects of cannabis and how it's going to help them in their everyday lives.
How about for the lovers out there, G? I mean, would you recommend a sativa or an indica?
Sativa.
There you go.
Uplifting won't put you to sleep. Yeah.
Are you talking based on experience?
What the opposite? What's that?
Are you speaking on his experience there?
maybe.
Okay. So we're talking about soap.
I wouldn't be able to talk about strain of the week unless I had experience, right? You got to experiment and
we would not.
And
we would have no credibility otherwise.
Don't trust a chef that won't eat his own dish.
There you go.
Yeah.
Was that Chef Ramsay?
Exactly.
A quote?
You got to try it.
Hell's Kitchen?
Chef Boyardee, Chef Ramsay,
Chef
one of the
Ramsay.
two.
They're all chefs.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's called The Soap or Soap?
The soap.
Okay, and is it strictly
soap, yep.
sativa? Is it what's?
It's strictly sativa because animal mints and kush mints are both mixes, but I would say it's a sativa, about 16% THC, so it's not
too bad.
Strong. Great for the everyday smoker or like I said, somebody that's just getting into cannabis and trying to get a feel for for how that can help them and their everyday life. So awesome strain, smells good, tastes good.
Is that limited to a certain part of the country? I mean, often you hear about these strains being developed and grown and produced, and they're region specific, or they started in a certain region. Is this something that the listeners? I mean, the version of the show is a podcast. Also, it's heard all over the world. Where can people get soap other than the grocery store and box stores? I mean, not the soap you wash with, but the soap you smoke with. I mean, you could smoke and wash at the same time, Steve.
I
have a little smoke, have a little wash.
A West Coast strain, only because it is derived from, like I said, animal mints, which I believe is a California original strain. So I would say it probably started there and started making its way to the East Coast. There's actually rumors that I want to say it's either owned by or it was brought up by Cookies, which is actually in Michigan and in California. So
fantastic. That's a great strain right there. So the holiday, Christmas is coming up. The New Year's is coming up. Do you have any recommendations for Christmas and New Year's? A strain for the listeners and connoisseurs out there?
Put me on the spot. Not off the top of my head, but I'll tell you what. The next show, I'll be prepared, and I'll have a Christmassy strain of the week. How about that?
Okay. Are there any strains named after the theme of Christmas?
Off the top
Is
of
there
my
a
head,
Santa? Is there a Santa
I
strain?
would say there's got to be a Saint Nick or
Rudolph.
Rudolph the red-eyed reindeer.
Hey, Grant, we have a question for you. Would you like to be stopped on the roadway by an officer just to be told that you're, operating a motor vehicle in a very safe manner?
No, I don't think that's necessary.
Oh, yes, it is. You were present for the first half of the show. It's absolutely necessary. And Steve and I want to be stopped when we're driving on a ditch and told that we are driving in a very safe manner and given some kind of treat, right, Steve?
That's right.
Because it
shouldn't always be a ticket.
It should not always be a ticket. And, in fairness to officers, and we support law enforcement wholeheartedly. A lot of our friends and family are in law enforcement, so nothing but love and respect out there. I got a lot of friends in different sheriff's department and so forth. But there are cases, you see it on the newswire or on satellite, whereby an officer stops somebody just to help them out and do some goodwill. It's not always for a wrong reason.
Enforcement of whatever,
If you're broken down on the side of the road, which, by the way, a big shout out. I told Craig a couple weeks ago, no more shout outs. Dan Morrow, Wings Automotive, right there in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Dan helped me out with something last week. He's actually a personal family friend of mine. So I called Dan on the phone. He came out and helped us out, Jen and I. And so much love to Dan. Wings Automotive, great place right there in Mount Pleasant. But point is, they do stop and help people when they're supposed to.
Sure, assistance as opposed to enforcement.
Yeah. Now, if you're broken down on the side of the road and an officer approaches and you're doing something wrong, well, then it's going to turn into an investigation.
Well, then that's natural. That's their job too.
You ready for this one, Grant?
I'm ready.
Over the years, not in recent years, I have had individuals who appeared at a sheriff's department or county jail to bond somebody out, and they approached and appeared intoxicated and were seen. No, true story. Because often people get arrested after midnight
with their friends,
and they make a phone call, or the person they were with are individuals. Oh, we got to go help that person out.
Right.
So they are then seen approaching the county jail or the sheriff's department. Yeah. I once had a client who, during Welcome Back weekend at CMU, this is about 10 years ago. He was walking. Welcome back weekend, big party weekend. Everyone's back from summer vacation. And he was so intoxicated, he just walked right to the back of a squad car and plopped right down on the back. He got an MIP, minor possession, which is now still an infraction, but back then they used to be misdemeanors. So, yeah. So anyway, Grant, we really appreciate you taking time to be on the show. And when is M66 opening up?
It's for the next show or the show after. I can't wait.
When is your dispensary opening up there in Bearton?
Like you said, let's plan for February, March. That's what we're hoping for the grand opening. So.
Freaking fantastic! By the way,
everybody posted.
We will, and you shall. And Craig Russell's at a yoga retreat right now. By the way,
I'm sure he's enjoying himself.
we don't want any info. Yeah,
no.
We're doing goat yoga. Steve and I are doing. Is that right?
That's right. Goat yoga. Yes.
Are the goats the ones where they just faint if you shout? Is that a goat?
There are fainting goats.
Come on.
These ones were very sociable goats.
Is that true?
Oh yeah.
Craig told me last week that if there's a lot of turkeys at a turkey farm and you scream or say something, they'll all go silent. Have you ever heard that one?
I have heard that. I've seen that before. I've seen videos of that.
I'm such a city guy. I saw squirrels growing up. That was the only animal I saw. How about you, G? You're from the city.
Yeah, I'm
squirrels.
from the city, and I'll tell you something that threw me off recently was a fox scream. Have you guys ever seen a fox scream or heard a fox scream?
No.
Back in the day, we saw foxy ladies at bars.
Look up.
Hello, Steve.
We have dogs, and I think it was either a mating call or the fox was scared or whatever it was. But
coyote.
I had to look it up after because it sounded like somebody was like in pain or in distress, and it was actually a fox. So yeah, look it up. It's pretty crazy.
Could have been a coyote down there in Metro Detroit. Coyotes.
Yeah, we do have those too. Yep. Gotta look out for the coyotes.
Well,
watch their little dogs.
Gee, thanks. Say hi to everybody at M66, Cuz, and the whole family. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you then.
So the strain of the week.
Soap.
The soap. Do you got to smoke that out of a bubbler? Or
Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming to the show of all shows there. That's some good stuff. The soap, a strain can be named anything. Mm-hmm. It can be named Santa.
Sure.
And it's very gifty. It would be very uplifting. But 17% THC,
not going to couch lock you. Not going
to hopefully give you too much anxiety.
Put you on Planet Zoom, yeah.
But look, even though you have a legal right to do something, do it responsibly. I am an attorney. We are a show.
There you go.
We don't want anybody out there, even though you have a legal right to do something, do it to the extent where you're going to cause harm to yourself or others, whether it's driving, operating heavy equipment. Know your limits. Know your bounties. Look out for one another out there also year-round. That's really important, I think. As long as we continue to look out for one another in life, then hopefully we'll be okay.
There you go. A great thought to break on here. We'll be back with segment 3 right after this. It's the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Change my life. Yeah. Then I noticed you there. You were my angel sent from my despair. I know that you are the lady who cares. Whoa, yeah. I wanna spend my life with you.
And we're back on the Mother-Ship in the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. I just had to try to be you.
That's funny because you're my mentor, and I'm always trying to be you. So you sound like you.
Todd L. Levitt, the one and only attorney across the
now.
desk. Steve filling in for Craig this week on the big show. And Todd, we've been talking the first couple of segments. You pitched the idea of getting pulled over for doing right, for doing the speed limit, for using your turn signal, not just for when you do an infraction, but get a pat on the back, maybe get a little something. Now, I started thinking, this time of year, you see some law enforcement agencies do that. They pull people over and give them a turkey instead of tickets. A great program, helps people out this time of year. But my question is, if you get pulled over for doing right, like we propose, or turkeys for tickets, and maybe you're riding dirty, what happens there? Because they didn't pull you over for an infraction, but then something's found when they pull you over. How would that be handled?
It's interesting because more than likely there's going to be an investigation.
Sure.
And if you are found to have either committed a crime or a crime is being committed in front of that officer, then they have a duty and obligation to protect the public at large, including themselves, to investigate. And if you are found to be breaking any laws or statutes, then you could be placed under arrest, detained, investigated. So, yes, it could go from good to bad.
Yeah.
Look, a lot of people who get pulled over we always say as defense attorneys are waving their arms high in the air.
Right.
They either have a headlight out, a brake light out, tail light. They have a broken windshield. There's something dangling in Michigan. Over the years, if you have something obstructing your view, your vision,
Something hanging from your
something
rear
hanging,
view. Yeah.
So, or you're speeding. So, for years, and I've been doing this for 30 plus years, people back in the day, who got caught or busted with marijuana, mostly when it was illegal, they were always speeding. I always thought to myself, and look, I don't judge people, and I never said this, but if you're doing something you shouldn't, which I'm not recommending, why are you speeding and raising your arms up and shouting,
Why
hey, I'm right
you
here?
walk around? When you get an oil change, they walk around and make sure all your lights work. And if you're transporting illegal substances, you're not going to make sure.
Which we don't want anybody doing.
No, I'm not advocating that.
Right.
But I'm saying, where's the mindset that you don't do that safety check before you leave?
Check the headlight. I have a lot of clients who are stopped driving down the roadway at night after consuming alcohol, whether they're intoxicated or not. We don't want anybody drinking or driving.
Sure.
But you could drink, as long as you're 21 and over, you can drink and get behind the wheel as long as your blood alcohol is not a
Not over the
0.08 or
limit.
higher. If you're under 21, it's zero tolerance.
Right.
At least in the state of Michigan and most other states, Steve, you cannot consume any alcohol. We have a zero tolerance law in Michigan. You could be charged and convicted. If you're under 21 and you blow a 0.06, 0.07, even a 0.05, you're looking at what's called under 21 with a blood alcohol content. It is a misdemeanor. It carries no jail, 30-day license suspension, possible community service, alcohol assessment. But if you're 21 and over, look, if you're consuming alcohol at a bar and you're making poor choices to get behind the wheel, make sure your headlights are working.
It would make sense.
Use your blinker. Here's another thing people do. They roll out of a parking lot. You're supposed to yield.
Like they're on their way to a fire.
Correct. If you're leaving a private parking lot like they're on the way to a fire.
You stop.
Hey, is that a first responder shout out? Big shout out to first responders.
Love them.
We all love our first responders. But truly, don't roll out of a parking lot. Pause, yield, look both ways, and then go on your way.
Well, often there's a sidewalk and such there. You should do that anyway.
Exactly.
Hey, we've been
Great
talking
question.
a lot about traffic stops today, and how long should a traffic stop last? From the initial, okay, you're driving, let's say it's a blinker or a headlight out. How long should that situation last if you're maybe getting a ticket or getting whatever?
Well, that's a great question. And typically, once the traffic stop is complete, if there's no suspicions raised, Steve, during that stop as a result of the police questioning, the traffic stop is then concluded. But, there are other laws that apply. The question is, did the officer exceed the scope of his or her investigation? Because as I just said, folks, once again, once the purpose, and this is Supreme Court law, once the purpose of the initial traffic stop is completed, an officer cannot further detain you, Steve, or the vehicle or its occupants, and here's the law, unless something happened during that stop to cause the officer to have, and this is in quotes, a reasonable and articulable, I can't even say that, suspicion that criminal activity is afoot. It's a case out there. It's Davis. Also, United States versus Smith. I know this at the top of my head because I'm a defense attorney. Now, if an individual is held after the purpose of a stop has been completed, the principles in what's called Terry versus Ohio, a very landmark case. So a Terry stop permits a police officer to briefly detain a person or property for the investigative purposes if the officer, again, has reasonable suspicion supported, and here's the key word, articulable facts that criminal activity has occurred or is about to occur. So if you're basically, let me sum it up. If you're pulled over for a traffic stop,
okay,
there's no other activity.
Right.
There's nothing in plain view.
Right.
The officer stops you, you're speeding, blinker, tail light, broken windshield. There's nothing in plain view. You don't have any illegal paraphernalia
Bloody axe
or
on the
drugs.
backseat.
Nothing. Nothing. It's just a traffic stop. There's no scent. There's no observations that your eyes are glossy, your speech is slurred. There's alcohol or drugs illuminating from the vehicle. As you said, there doesn't look to appear to be any stolen goods. So it's just a traffic stop. The officer goes back. He runs your name. He sees, okay.
No warrants.
No warrants, nothing. This person, exactly, correct. Comes back. But let's say, for instance, the officer had another officer with him or her. And
Usually one shows up at least.
Yeah, and that officer says, you know what, Steve, I recognize his name. And that name is the last name that's very familiar to me, although it's not this individual. That's a very familiar name.
I've dealt with his uncle. I've dealt with...
Right, correct. So now they walk back to the car. They ask you to step out of the car. Okay, you follow me? There's no other justification. Now, they have a right to ask you to step out under certain circumstances. So now you're stepping out.
Right.
And really all all you are required to do is provide identification and information. You have no other obligation to incriminate yourself or to answer any questions. Now, if you're not doing anything wrong, just have a conversation. What do you got to hide?
Sure.
I mean, think about it. I mean, you're just driving down the road.
Right.
You're not.
Left
You're
work,
literally
I'm sober.
There's nothing going on.
Right.
Ask me whatever you want to ask me. But again, you have a right. You have constitutional rights.
Yeah.
And you have to use them.
You can tell them no. You
Right.
can say, I know my rights.
Exactly. But at that point, you're out of the vehicle.
Right.
And says, you know what? Are you sure, Steve, there's nothing else going on in this vehicle? Can I search your car? Now, at that point in time, Miranda may trigger, okay, where you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you because truly, think about it. If you got back in your car and took off, what do you think would happen? You'd be charged with a felony.
They'd like
fleeing
you
and
up
eluding.
again, yeah.
So therefore, at that point, I would argue as a defense attorney, you are not free to leave. So Miranda should trigger at that point.
Well, that's
Miranda's
the
not
question.
automatic.
Do you need to ask them if you're being detained or if, what are we doing here? Because you pulled me over
you don't have
for
to
a headlight.
ask. It's a state of mind.
Okay.
I would argue that once an officer approaches you, you are not free to leave.
I would agree.
And so, but that's not when Miranda triggers.
Okay. Once
you are placed in custody or under arrest, that's a question to be defined, to be determined. It's a motion. That's something that a lawyer has to bring up in court.
Right.
My client's, I have a motion pending right now that my client's Miranda rights were violated. I have a case right now pending where the officer did exceed the scope of the stop.
Mm-hmm.
But in any event, I would argue as an attorney that under case law, recent decisions at the Supreme Court level, that based on those facts we just discussed, that the officer at that point, when he requests that you step out, can he search the car, exceeded the scope of the traffic stop. There were no articulable suspicious facts that led that officer to request that you step out.
Well, further than just here's
There's
your
nothing.
ticket or warning.
There's nothing. And even if the officer, now here's the thing, do you have to get permission for the officer to search your car? If the officer is asking to search your car, they don't have anything.
Right.
Because if they had something, it could be a warrantless search, and they could search it.
Yeah. Hey,
now,
I see that roach sitting in your ashtray.
plain view
Get out of the
doctrine. It's
car.
called the plain view exception. Hot pursuit. Consent. You can give consent to search the car. Just because you don't give consent doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong.
Right.
You see?
Yeah. Again, within your rights to say,
Exactly.
I don't want you tearing through my car.
So it's, again, we're talking Fourth Amendment, constitutional protections against illegal search and seizures, and the scope of the stop. How far does it go? How far can an officer extend the initial traffic stop beyond a few questions and initial observations?
Very good.
There was no reason in that fact pattern for the officer to request to search your vehicle. There was nothing in plain view. Just because your name sounded familiar to someone else's name, that doesn't pass muster with the Constitution and Supreme Court decisions.
Right. Because then you've got a clouded perception of who the other person is.
Correct.
Gotcha.
But a Terry stop does permit an officer to briefly detain a person or property for that investigative purpose if the officer, again, has reasonable suspicion. Under that fact pattern, a name is not reasonable suspicion. And it has to be also, not only does he have to have he or she reasonable suspicion, but here's the key. It has to be supported by articulable facts that criminal activity has occurred or is about to occur. And, there's a number of cases, Ohio cases, that line up that back that law up.
Okay. These are things you're going to argue in court.
Well, it's a motion.
Yeah.
You file a motion to suppress a statement or evidence found as a result of...
Because it came after the fact.
Correct. Right,
Gotcha.
exactly. And it's Fourth Amendment protections, but the attorney, if he or she knows what they're doing, if it's a felony issue, if after if the scope of the stop was exceeded and there was a search and there was felony activity and there's an examination, then at least in Michigan, the defense attorney will bring a motion pursuant to MCR 6.11D to exclude that evidence and ask the judge to throw it out.
So you were holding court this week.
Yes.
Off-site.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience over at Spicer's.
I love Spicers. You know, I'm there working on my sleds, getting ready for snowmobile season. And as I mentioned earlier, big shout out also to Here's Some Power Motorsports. Mm-hmm. Very dear friends of mine, Emerson, Sean, appreciate everything you do over there. I actually purchased a boat from Here's Some Power Sports. Yeah, but from Spicers, because I like to spread the love in the community. We're talking snowmobiles here. But so I had to go there and pick up some gear. Mm-hmm. So it just happened to be in the middle of the day last week, and I had court. So I had my laptop with me. But Mike Trent over there, big shout out to Mike Trent, he was kind enough to let me use Sean's office. So I'm sitting, in the middle of Spicers, which is a huge, how would you describe it?
Big showroom, yeah.
Big showroom, boats, side-by-side sleds. Nick Terry was there. He helped me out too. And there's also another Nick in finance. Big shout out to those guys. But so I'm sitting there with my laptop. Behind me in Sean's office is Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm talking life size.
Big cutout, yeah.
So I'm zooming with the court. There's tons of lawyers in the room. The judge comes on. I'm not going to say in the jurisdiction, but it was really interesting. A few people mentioned, Todd, where are you? So Spicers got a shout out in the middle of a courtroom located in the state of Michigan. And then afterwards, we went over and bought some helmets from Haley. She does a great job over there. But, when you buy a snowmobile, they give you this. It's amazing what they do over there. They give you an orientation.
Oh, nice.
So then we went into the shop, and we had Austin and Rob. Rob's from Grayling. We love Grayling. The Wakely's up there. But everybody over there did such a great job helping us out. Chris, Jesse, the overall general manager. Mm-hmm. Everybody just such a great job.
That's awesome.
So I actually held court.
It's amazing how far things have come. You couldn't have done that 10 years ago.
No, not at all.
With the advent of Zoom and these things we've all become so accustomed to now, that's got to be a nice feature for you.
Oh, yeah. Jake was there. I mean, it was so cool just holding court. I'm thinking, there's loudspeakers going on. People are talking about financing because Mike, the finance guy, was right behind me in his office. And, I mean, you could hear the background. First, you have Dale Hart Jr. there, and then you have all these people talking. And they weren't being rude. They were just doing their job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I enjoyed it. The judge enjoyed it.
Nice.
And they did ask where I was at. So Spicers got a huge shout-out in court, in a major courtroom with hundreds of people listening.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, Spicers commercial. But before I got to Spicers, I had to stop off at Here's Some Power Sports to pick up a trailer, that Sean and Emerson provided me so I could go to Spicers. So 2 Central Michigan Motorsport, great businesses helped me out there. But I also have some great sponsors of the show, Steve.
Absolutely. Every week, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show brought to you in part by our good friends at Chad Mallywell, Drilling of Rosebush, also Clark Modular Homes in Mount Pleasant, Ace of Diamonds in Mount Pleasant, as well as Clear Vision Windows, Siding, and Roofing. They're now booking in central and northern Michigan. Rusty Gold Antiques, you find them in Everett, and the one and only attorney Todd L. Levitt.
Yeah.
We've got one more segment. Todd will break away, and we'll come back. This hour flies by.
Yeah. Are we doing like a 24-hour marathon here today? Will Mike and Norm allow that? You're in charge.
Not my contract, man.
Listen, you're in charge with Tammy. Come on. Tammy's right outside the door. Can we ask her?
Well, we'll see. Maybe the show's over in 10 minutes. Maybe it goes till 10 o'clock tonight.
Oh, boy.
That's Todd L. Levitt. I'm Steve Clausen. We're back with more after this.
Change my life. Yeah. Then I noticed you there. You were my angel
Welcome back to the Todd Levitt Law Show, turning it and burning it, destroying with slaughter. Now with Craig Russell, who's at a yoga retreat, but my good friend Steve Clausen in the Mother-Ship. Steve, so stoked to have had you here.
You know, it's a pleasure. We did this last year, and I offer it up. Whenever Craig is unavailable, I'd love to sit in on the show. Have a great time. I always learn something.
I appreciate that. And what you're going to learn today, by the way, after the show is, on your way home, you're going to get pulled over. You're going to get stopped by an officer. You're not doing anything illegal. You weren't even speeding.
Right.
But he's going to tell you, Steve Clausen, you did a great job.
Good job.
Here you go.
Hey, you know, sometimes you need that positive affirmation.
And by the way, for those who live on a different planet and don't know you, which everybody knows who you are and recognize your amazing voice and talent, when can they hear you, other than on every commercial and what you do here?
Monday through Friday, I do the morning show here on UPS. So 6 a.m. until 10, we hang out, we commiserate. Saturdays, I'm in here from 9 until 1, and enjoy it, man. I mean, the music we play is the best music ever made, in my opinion. Classic hits, the 70s, 80s, and, well, beyond. We're touching on 90s and 2000s now, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love 90s, 2000s rock. We play a lot of that on our show. Mm-hmm. Shine Down. Are you playing? Are you getting into that 90s rock yet, where you have Seven Dust, Avenged Sevenfold? That's a little
harder than where we usually go. Yeah, and we
okay.
haven't quite breached into grunge yet, but
okay.
we're right on that cusp.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. And Black Diamond Group has so many different stations.
Whatever your musical tastes are, we've got you covered with country and rock and classic rock and soft rock. Mac FM's doing Christmas music now for the rest of the year. So, yeah, definitely do check it out. You mentioned the app earlier. Search for Black Diamond Broadcasting in your app store. You'll find it. You can download it, listen to all of our stations, and we thank you for it.
Yeah, Mike and Norm do such a great job. Tammy Thompson here at the station. Everybody else does such a great job at all the Black Diamond Group Mother-Ship stations. And I'm honored and so much appreciate having the opportunity to exercise my constitutional rights, the freedom of speech, and give the listeners a little bit of entertainment and information.
Absolutely.
It's just so cool out there. A lot of people listen to the show. And again, it was such a cool experience holding court in the Spicers last week. That was so badass.
I would have asked him
and
to put
thank you to Jesse and Mr. Trent and everybody there who were so kind that allowed me to do that, and Sean for using his office.
See, I would have asked if they still had any pontoons on the floor. Hey, put me up in this one. I'll put me on the party deck. I'll just lay out, and yeah.
That is so great. And you know they do.
Absolutely.
So what do you got planned for the weekend? I mean, it's been a great weekend so far.
So far, so good. You know, I think I'm going to take it easy today. We'll kick back, watch a little football. Maybe the Lions will get back on the winning track. They're a 1-point favorite against Jacksonville.
Oh, they got that game. Yeah.
They should be playoff bound. I'm so frustrated, as everybody always is. Same old Lions, but they should have won at least 3 more games already this year.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Hey, programming note, I want to let your listeners know that there will be a show next week. There will not be a show on Christmas Day. That falls on Sunday this year. So this is essentially, we'll have next week's show is the last show of the year.
Come on, Steve. Come on.
You know, it's not my decision.
I can sing
Todd.
Christmas music.
Ooh.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer.
Mike, Norm, you listening?
Had a very shiny nose.
Hey.
Yeah.
I like
and
it.
If you ever
saw
him,
you would even say it
glows. Oh, we're killing it here.
We need to put out a Christmas album.
Look, you and I did karaoke a couple years ago at a Christmas party. We sang Britney Spears' "Ooh Baby Baby," you and I.
Yes.
It's legendary. I think we should do Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from now on.
I think, hey, why not?
How about, remember the Snowman one? Put one step in front. Are you too young?
I'm gonna have
the
to learn
other.
that one.
And soon you'll be walking across the... You don't remember that one?
I don't remember.
How about
that
Speed
one.
Racer?
Here he comes. Here comes Speed Racer. He's a demon on wheels.
Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
He's a demon and he's going to be chasing after someone.
Come on, you're like 32 years of age. How do you remember that?
Way too kind to me,
Come on, Steve. Anyhow, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity. You are my mentor. You've taught me so much about radio over the years. Michael J. back in the day, Craig Russell, Tammy. But really, Steve, you've been great for sitting in, and hopefully you'll do a lot more of it in the future.
You are far too kind to me, my friend. I appreciate sitting in. Had a great time with you today. I assume Craig will be back next week, but if not, you and I will get together and do this.
Yep, and I say it each and every week, Steve. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. And as you said, I'm not just a litigator.
I'm an advocator.
Take us out.
Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Mallywell Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes of Mount Pleasant, Ace of Diamonds of Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, and Roofing, now booking in Central and Northern Michigan, Rusty Gold Antiques in Everett, and attorney Todd L. Levitt.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.